Hello. We're going to talk about eyes today and different ways that you can retouch them. Eyes are so important in a portrait, and you really want them to pop. And a lot of things can happen. Sometimes they're shaded. In fact, in this picture, you can see that there's a little section on one side of the eye that's shaded, or they may have a color cast. Sometimes they're a little bit blue, sometimes they're a little bit yellow. You never know. It just depends on what kind of lighting you're in. And so, but you want to make sure they're bright and not too bright at the same time. And you want to make sure that there's richness in the eye itself and that there's a catch light like this beautiful catch light. It just sort of helps them to light up. So I'm just going to go through a very simple series of things you can do. And we'll start with the whites of the eyes. And how you might brighten them is by making a simple selection. I like to use the lasso, and I'm going to check to see what my feather is. And up here in the menu bar, specifically for the lasso tool, I see that it's a 3 pixels. I'm going to set it for just 1 pixel. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my selection. I'm just carefully drawing around the white of the eye, trying to be as careful as I can because it's a very clear selection here. And now in order to add to the selection, I'm holding down the Shift key, and I'm also going to draw in this other white section of the eye here. And I'm going to do the same thing on this eye. The reason I do both eyes simultaneously is because I find that it makes it more consistent. We're going to light up this area too just a little bit. So we should check and see how our selection is and if we need to subtract from it or add to it. I think I need to add to just a tiny little bit right here, this little white of the eye. That looks a lot better to me. And then another little tiny bit over here. And then I'm catching a little bit more on this side. I want to maintain that roundness. And we're looking pretty good over here, but I think I could perfect it just a tiny bit more. Select a tiny bit more. And I think we'll remove just the slightest section over here by holding down the Option key. I went a little too far, so we're going to add to it again. There you have it. Now in order to hide a selection so you don't have to look at it, it's Command H for hide. That really helps you not be distracted by the crawling ants. So in this case, I'm going to just do a simple Command L for levels. That's Command on a Mac and Control on a PC. And I'm going to bring up the midtones a little bit, just a tiny little bit. As you can see, it brightened it up quite a bit, even just doing that small amount. So I'm going to come and say, okay, I don't want to go too far. I just want a little bit. Now let's see what we did. So this Command Z, so it shows me where we were and where we are. I'm just toggling back and forth where we were and where we are, and it does look better. Okay. Now also, another one of the things that you'll notice is that there's veins in the eyes. And a lot of times they're not that distracting. These aren't that distracting at all, actually. But you can work on those. Like sometimes somebody will have a very dramatic red portion here in the eye, and this isn't that. But you can clean this up a little bit. And what I'm using here is the Spot Healing Brush tool. So I've just selected that, and I'm just going to kind of go over a tiny little bit some of these little veiny areas in the white of the eye, just to clean it up a little bit. It's awfully dark in this section too, but we're just going to make it look as natural as possible. And then I'm going to move over to the other eye and do exactly the same thing with some of the areas that don't look quite nice enough on this side. And that looks pretty darn good. So let's see. While we have the white selected, I'm going to go ahead and select my Dodge tool, which is here in the toolbox. And I've got an exposure up for the midtones, an exposure of 11%, not very high, which is a good thing because you don't want to go too far. And I'm just going to use that tool, and I'm going to rub it out just a little bit right there, rubbing out the color just slightly, the darkness, the midtones. And as you can see, it looks a little more pink now, doesn't it? So let's use the sponge tool. Looks like I have that set rather large, so I'm going to bring that down smaller. And you'll notice that the flow is set for 21%, so that's a fairly low flow. And we're just going to, again, use our little tool and desaturate to rub the color down. Now, if we had it on saturate, I'll show you this, what it would do is it would saturate that pink, and we don't want that. So make sure you've got it set for desaturate. So we're going to put desaturate here, and I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side in that darker area here. Now, as far as these eyes are concerned, the actual iris, I do want to saturate that. I do want to bring that color up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and I've chosen saturate. My flow is still at 21%, which is perfectly nice. And I'm just going to draw in there, just rub the cursor over the top of that eye just to bring that color out a little bit more. You could also, if you like, dodge it just a little bit. Not a lot, just enough to sort of help the color pop just a little bit. And I'm going to bring it down again to look and see how it looks. And that looks pretty darn good to me. I like it. So, what else do we need to do? Actually, sometimes that's really all you need to do. One thing you could consider, though, using the burn tool and our exposure, we're going to bring it up to 10%, and I'm going to make the brush awfully small now. I'm going to bring it down a lot. We're using the left bracket key to make our brush smaller. And I'm going to go ahead and draw over just the outside edge of the eye just to make it a little bit darker. I think the exposure is a little bit on the low side, so I'm going to bring that back up to 22 and see if that makes a difference. You notice a lot of people's eyes actually, oh, you know why it's not working? I just realized because my selection is of the whites of the eyes. I was wondering about that. Okay, so I've just deselected, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this, and it's going to work a little bit better. Okay. So I'm drawing the outside edge of the eyes. When you look at people, you'll notice that their eyes are like this. They actually do have a darker edge a lot of times, so this isn't exaggerating anything that wasn't already there. And again, we're going to dodge the iris just a tad. Make that look a little bit better. And also, I kind of want the eyes to match. And we can use the sponge tool to make it even more exaggerated. We don't want to go too far. But that looks pretty good. So that is eye basics. Definitely leave the catch light, by the way. You really, really want that there because that puts the light in the eyes and it's a natural thing. That's the softbox that I used when I was photographing the person. If you take it out, in fact, why don't I just go ahead and show you? If you actually do take the catch light out, you'll find that it sort of creates the eye to be a little bit on the dead side. It definitely isn't. It doesn't look nice. All I did was I used the exact same color of the eye and just made got rid of the pupil there. Let me go back in my history and erase that last little brush. And you'll see his eyes look natural now, but they don't look natural here, not at all. So you need that catch light. It's a very important thing to keep. Okay? So that's the eye basics. Now I'm going to do another one with a woman's portrait in just a moment, and you'll get to see me putting eyeshadow on her eyes. Okay? So hang on. All right, and we're back with a different picture, and this time we're going to put eyeshadow on someone. There are occasions where somebody's not wearing makeup and you just kind of want to make them look a little nicer like they are with a little bit of color, and this is a very, very simple technique to do that. So I have a duplicate layer of my regular layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a brush and I'm going to put the mode into overlay, and I'm going to put my opacity pretty low. So we're going to go ahead and set this for 8%. And you get to be the judge on your own image what percentage you're going to use, but generally low is better. And we're going to use the left bracket key to make our brush a little bit smaller. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the color that I want. And I definitely want something, well, I was thinking I want something in the pink range, but now I'm thinking maybe I'll use sort of an aqua color or a green perhaps. Let's see how that looks, because we can always change this. Something sort of pale and pretty. And again, our opacity is rather low, and that's how we want it. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint on this green color. Now, because the opacity is so low, it's coming in very, very subtle, but that is what I want because I want to make sure I'm not going too far. And so I can just keep painting over and over the top of it until it just looks pretty natural, actually. Okay? And then we're going to do it on the other side as well. We're just going to keep painting over it and just building up the color little by little in the areas where eyeshadow would be. That green actually looks quite nice. And I think that is it. So I'm going to add a little bit of pink color into the lips There are some portions of the lips that could use a little bit of color, a slight alteration. It still maintains that burgundy, but it gives a little bit of a sweeter tone. So I'm doing that. And then I think, what the heck, just for the sake of the exercise, I'm going to add a little bit of pinkish tone into the cheek. Not so much pink, perhaps, as rosy. So we're going to go up to a little more of a red tone here. And we're using a larger brush. So again, I'm using the bracket key to make it larger and smaller. It's the left bracket key to make it bigger. And I'm just slightly brushing over the top of the area that would be the cheek. And I'm going to make it slightly smaller now and just brush over on the other side of the cheek and maybe a tiny, tiny bit on the chin and slightly in the forehead as well. And that's really all you need to do. You just want it to be quite subtle. And that's it. It's very, very simple. And now we've added a little bit of color. In fact, we can see our before and after. So I'm going to turn that layer off. And this is where we were. And this is where we are. So I didn't do a whole lot of change. Just a little bit. Just enough to make it just a little bit better. And you can do that too. So feel free to experiment. I hope you do. And try all kinds of different eyeshadow colors and see which one you like best. Okay. That's it for now.